Hey, welcome to the program. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, where we study the 4 pillars of a healthy home: your house, your ecosystem in the house, your body, and your mind and spirit. All need to be in place and strong, or you got problems. What happens, Sheila?
The roof caves in.
The roof comes tumbling down.
Kind of like today.
We have in the studio today Kelly
See if he gets it right.
Grosklags.
Yes. Nice.
Excellent.
All right.
Nice.
So Kelly is we're into the emotional, spiritual well-being of the house today.
Yep.
And Kelly is a therapist. You got 4 sets of letters behind your name here. I don't know what that. I have 4 daughters who are psychologists or counselors or whatever.
In psychology. Yes.
Psychology majors
Somewhere
and practicing. And you got letters behind your name. The only one I recognize is FT. That's we say foot. In real estate,
right.
that means
There
foot.
you go.
So
Feet.
I didn't
How much
know if you were a foot doctor or what the deal was. So why don't you let's just start out with a little background of where your practice started, how it evolved, and then now you're a national speaker. You're out training. You're in hospitals and big shot, big deal. And so, but where did it all come from? What's the roots?
Well, first of all, thank you, both of you, for having me on. So the letters mean that I can study and take a test.
Oh, wonderful.
Right. And so FT is actually fellow in thalattology.
Fellow in, okay.
Thalattology. So the study of death and dying.
Okay.
Bereavement. It started when I was 11, and my mother, Sandy, had a heart attack at the grocery store in front of me when we were shopping. And they resuscitated her. She was 33. They resuscitated her in the grocery store and then ended up being transferred to Fairview Southdale Hospital, where she was in and out of a vegetative state or a coma in ICU. So when she died 3 months later. I didn't realize that was going to be the beginning.
At the hospital or?
At the hospital.
She was there that long?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
She was. And she would have another episode, but then hopefully we were going to get her to rehab. So when she died, little did I know that was the beginning of the calling to do this work in end of life, but I didn't sign up for it in college. I was actually in advertising and marketing as a beginning career. And then was pulled aside by a professor and said, I think you're on the wrong track.
Was that because he saw something in you?
Yes.
Or was it because you were no good in advertising?
Well, probably both, but it was probably both. But it was a psychology professor who said, I feel like there's something here that you just have a deep kind of spiritual, when I meet with you, there's an energy. And I said, I really want to make a lot of money. I'm not going to be in that, and blah, 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 blah. So ended up, obviously, graduating in social work undergrad and then getting a clinical social work degree graduate, and was really, so I do say I've been in this field since I was 11, because that's really where the training came, is the personal training of experiencing grief and trauma at such a young age. But
with somebody so close.
Was somebody so close. And so my mother, Sandy, is the reason for what I have developed, which is called Conversations with Kelly. So started working out in working at the hospital in palliative care and hospice. Worked on an inpatient hospice unit. Have had the pleasure to be at the Sacred Walk, which is truly sacred work with people who are at the end of their life, and have walked with thousands, have been able to be at the bedside of hundreds as they've taken their last breath. Then after several years of that, decided, I really want to do more one-on-one with people in not a clinical setting, not with beeping and needles and all these things that are very scary. So opened up a practice after 12 years and was in practice for about 17 or 18, focusing primarily on oncology work and end-of-life work. And really the mission is to be able to take my mother's death and have it not be for naught, so to speak, so that I can help other people who are experiencing very scary, suffering, traumatic things, help them have more meaningful life and more meaningful death.
Tell me about your, if you will, from a personal standpoint, the impact that being bedside with so many people who have passed, who've died. What has that? What? Tell me about the. I feel weight when you say that. I feel this weight on myself, and I'm wondering, how do you deal with that? And then what has it done for you from a spiritual standpoint, from a believer's standpoint? I don't know what your faith is. I'm an evangelical Christian, but what has that done to you? Has it sharpened that knife, or has it dulled it?
Yeah. So the first question, how is it to be at the bedside? For me, it's the biggest classroom of life, because the dying have taught me how to live and have taught me what matters most, and when you're at the end of your life, from what I've learned, is a lot of what we worry about and spend time on and get angry about, and all these different things doesn't really matter at the end. So
it's affecting your health negatively in the
the process.
Yeah, right,
exactly. And so it to me, it's yes, it can be very sad, especially when you have a young person dying and they have small children. It's heart-wrenching. Or when you are standing next to a parent who is having their child die, or their second child die, no matter how old the child is, as those of us here on this show are parents, we can appreciate that. So it's not heavy for me. It's a privilege. And I really, yes, you have to take care of yourself when you're in the end of life work. But for me, when I would meet them where they're at, and some of them are Christians, some of them are Buddhist, some of them are Jewish. It doesn't, for me, it's not about judging that. It's just about meeting them where they're at.
Right.
Spiritually, yes, it has definitely enhanced my spirituality, because I have seen so much of communication with the other side by people who are dying, talking to people, their God, their mother who died, their child who died, walking in on so many of these experiences that it would be really hard to say, oh, this was medication related.
To deny it, yeah.
So in the beginning, when I was a baby clinician, we used to think it was hallucinations. And then we've learned a lot more in hospice and palliative care that this is actually, because we'd see people that weren't even on any narcotics having these conversations, and being privileged enough to walk in and not really being privy to the language of the dying, but to be...
Explain that, the language of the dying.
There's communication that happens that might sound like mumbling to us, but it's very clear for whomever they're communicating with. The looks, the kind of staring, the wanting to get out of bed, the wanting to go home, the travel metaphors, the
light.
There's light.
Okay.
There's light. I mostly see that's for like near death experiences more, but they're having a hard time communicating, but this, I want to go home. I want to go home. And it's about educating family about not necessarily the literal home.
Right.
Can you see people, or do you speak with them then that have maybe had that experience and then have come back to being lucid, and then had a dialogue about what it was that they articulate it?
They more or less say, my mother was here, or my grandma was in that chair, or I just saw my child, and so it's more snippets. I would say 99% of the time, there's a very peaceful experience that's happening with these conversations. Very loving, very looking. There's a lot of reaching. There can be a lot of reaching for...
And it's very peaceful for them, but how is it for the person sitting there watching them?
Once we educate the family of what's going on, it's incredibly healing.
When we come back, we have to run out to break here in a second.
Fast.
When we come back, I want to talk about, just to kind of continue on with that, I want to talk about the aftermath of that. And by that, I mean that you're there, mom's died, and the family is, grieving. What is that conversation then? How does that happen immediately following that event?
Okay.
This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. 651-775-9194. Give Sheila a ring-a-ling-a-ling. She'd be happy to have a chat with you about what it is that we do as we study the 4 pillars of a healthy home. And we'll be right back after these messages. Right. We're in the studio with Kelly Grosklags, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always thrilled when I
wow,
pronounce a name
2 times
right.
in a row.
He always
so
gets people's names
excited
wrong.
about
Always.
Anyhow, so conversationswithkelly.com. So we're talking about end of life experience. You have a long storied history in the world of counseling, and you've gravitated towards this this area. Just as a summary. As a result of your mother's death, died of a heart attack. She was 33 years old. You were 11 years old. Trauma.
Yeah.
Permanently scarred you. And so it's like a lifelong journey of healing.
Yes.
If I'm understanding right. And now you're in this work, nationally speaking, helping people all over the country deal with the same thing. Thousands of people have followed you and taken your advice. You've been bedside with hundreds of people. I can't even imagine it. When we went out to break, I was curious about the immediate aftermath of that event. So mom's died. You know the family's huddling around the room. 2 things. First of all, how did you get there in the first place? Why are you in the mix?
So, do you mean my own mom's death, or you being hypothetical? Okay.
The people that you've helped.
So I was at the time, back in the 90s, I was the hospice social worker. Okay. So I am working with every single family. We had an inpatient unit, so I got to make rounds every day with my patients and with the team. Sometimes we wouldn't have death, or they wouldn't have died when I'm there. They maybe had died in the middle of the night. Sometimes we had 3 deaths in one shift. And so I was the person that was very close. The chaplain and I actually did a lot of the kind of sitting with family, sitting with the patients, a lot of the educational component about this is what is happening now, helping them, because we do know that in the end, if people have knowledge about what's going on, there's less anxiety. We also look at this as a very natural part of living. And so to really help kind of take down some of that anxiety. If the patient is feeling more anxious, medications, music therapy, massage therapy, body work, whatever.
Therapy dog.
Absolutely. At the time we didn't, but now therapy dogs are a big part of the practice. And also in funeral homes, there's a lot of.
I just mentioned that to somebody. I said, would that be weird for us to be there?
Absolutely
not.
We
got to talk about that.
Absolutely not.
That's where I want to go next.
So I was often there with the death, and sometimes I might have been the only one there at the death. The patients and people die when they choose to die, and I might say your family's on the way, or maybe they were estranged from family and didn't have family. And so I would hold their hands and we'd play music. And if they were a person of faith, we'd have Christian music on. If that wasn't something that was important to them, we just would have music on. But just helping people not feel alone. So you asked what happens aftermath. Well, if the family is there, they get as much time as they need. And then we would alert the funeral home, and families get to stay and participate in whatever they want to participate in at that moment, whether maybe they want to help bathe, maybe they want to help, whatever they want to do. Some families want to leave immediately. And that is, what I want people to always know is no matter what way you do this, there's no wrong. And it doesn't mean you didn't love the person if you can't stay. It's just...
it's the way you're dealing with it, the way you're handling it.
Right. And it also depends on how did other deaths happen in your family? How did you deal with this? Do you go right out for dinner and celebrate? Do you all leave and go home? Do you shut down? Do you sit around? Do you sing? I mean, I've seen A to Z. I've seen every single thing. I've seen people get in fights. I've seen anger come out. I've seen drinking. I've seen, it's all of it. People die how they live. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So if you are somebody that's very family focused, you are likely going to want your family around. If you're very introverted and you want quiet and you don't want people talking and you find strength in that, you're probably going to choose to die with very few people, if any, in the room.
Party.
Right.
I want noise.
Party.
Noise. If prayer was important, you're going to want prayer. If animals were important, you're going to want animals. If nature's important, we're going to try and get windows open. If you're at home, we're gonna, just all of these things. It's really important to figure out, how did people live? Become such a focus on that they're dying that we forget that they lived.
Right.
And that's more of their story
than the
dying. But that becomes the central focus. And so I really like, if I can, to also talk to people themselves. Tell me about you before you were diagnosed with cancer. Tell me about you before the Parkinson's.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about you. Now, we know that having the opportunity to say goodbye for the grief experience is a gift.
A huge gift.
Versus the car accident. Versus the sudden.
Yep.
Versus the suicide.
Yep.
Versus the homicide. Versus the whatever.
A gift for who?
The family and the person, really.
Yeah.
But
what a gift
family.
it would have been to be able to say goodbye to my dad. That would have been a huge gift.
Yeah.
Did he die suddenly?
Heart attack.
A heart attack from a root canal.
Sheila.
So I'm just comparing now. My folks are both dead.
Oh.
My dad died of a heart attack. He was dead before he hit the floor. That was difficult. My mother had a stroke, and she was, for years.
Right.
Ailing,
hanging on.
you know. And it's like, I want to go like my dad.
Right. You want to go like your dad.
I don't want the hanging on thing.
Right. But would it have been nice had you could you have said goodbye to your dad?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, see, so that's the thing, right? Is it would have, yes, I agree, going that way fast is better, but I still would have liked to have said goodbye.
Yes, absolutely. And from a routine, so there's that those are the questions that never have answers, right? Those situations never have answers. So one of I hear that a lot from the person living with the experience. I want this quick.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
The family's like, well, hold on.
Yes.
So what it does is, again, the dying teach me how to live. We get now to say what we want to say.
Right.
We get now to say, I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. These are kind of important pillars.
Ho'oponopono.
Yep.
Did I just hear Ho'oponopono?
You sure did.
I think I did.
You heard
I think
absolutely did.
You want to know what that is? You reach out to us.
Yes.
That's a whole nother topic. You might have to come back on another show for some of these other things.
Absolutely heard that. I don't meet a lot of people that know that.
No, and I don't either.
I never. What is it?
Well, Lord, that's a whole nother.
Okay.
We got to have her back.
Right.
Yeah, this is we got so
Okay.
much. Shoot, what were you just saying before?
Well, so the dying teaches how to live. So the things that matter.
So, have you heard of Morning Story?
Oh yeah.
So, see how many people have heard of Morning Story? So, if you don't know what that is, you get to morning, meaning MOURNING, and you get yourself videotaped and you tell your story and you say what you want to say to the people that you love, and you're going to think this is hilarious. But how many years ago? Probably 12 years ago, he left town and I knew he was gone for the weekend, so I had somebody come and videotape my video to say goodbye to him. Now this was, and to everybody else, this was probably at least 12 years ago, way before Morning Story, way before it was a thing. And I had the dogs and I was saying goodbye, my 50 font typed out, so I didn't need my cheaters on. And the grandkids, we have this thing with the grandkids. It's like whenever we see them, who can say it first? Did I tell you today that I love you? Like that's our thing, right? And so we race in and we'd say each other. And so I got to say that, but I also got to tell everybody that if you don't accept Christ, you're not going to see me again. So it was my chance to say that to them. Now, Keith never watched it. My girlfriend never watched it, but they both have the tape. So I'm never changing it. People are like, you're going to revise it? No, I made it evergreen. Who knew what? I didn't even know what that was back then, but I was on top of it because I didn't have to. I didn't say specific grandkids. We weren't done yet. I did, so that kind of thing. Because I knew this was really a tough thing for me to do. I mean, I was sobbing during the whole thing, and so I didn't want to have to do it again, but I wanted them to know that it's my day. You better celebrate me. There's no plastic tablecloths. Like, you better have taken the day off. Everybody better get up and tell a story, and so forth. Because
is that after your dad died?
No, this was 12 years ago. Dad will be 4 next week.
Whoa. Okay.
And I haven't buried him yet, so that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's another story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's in the back room.
No, he's
That's
not.
okay.
He's in North Dakota, but yeah.
We welcome.
All right, so we got to go out to break here in 46 seconds. So
Okay.
what I want to do, just to recap, I want to, we kind of come the journey, and we're at bedside. I'm curious if you see a difference between in the age of the family, in the age of the person that's died, in the you know what I'm saying, in the age of the survivors, at how they react, and how you can address their emotions and their feelings at that time. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com. Hey, welcome back to the program. This is Our Healthy Homes, ourhealthyhomes.com, 651-775-9194. Give the lovely
me.
and talented Sheila a ring-a-ling-a-ling, and she'll be happy to chat with you about the 4 pillars of a healthy home: your house, your ecosystem, your body, and your mind and spirit. Get you at least pointed in the right direction. Of course, that call is with no cost and absolutely no obligation.
And I answer my phone.
All right, so we're speaking with Kelly Grosklags, and conversationswithkelly.com is the website. I encourage you to go to it. What a big deal. She is a national speaker. She's helped thousands of people work through this inevitable event in everyone's life, and that is death. I mean, it's just
that it unfortunately comes sooner for some people.
it's never too. It's always too soon.
It's always too soon,
It's
yes. But I
always
mean,
too soon.
but what I'm saying is like the sickness, like the cancers at a young age, and like those kind of
That's
things.
right.
So
It's-
we talk about that and coach people on how you can prolong
Right.
your life and
Yep.
live a healthy life in your home, and you have a healthy
you have
family
to want to
in your
right?
home.
Yep.
But at the end of the day,
We're all
we're
having
not getting
Yeah,
out of this
exactly.
deal alive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
But I'm curious about how the reaction of family members or the person who's dying, who are that age, if age has an impact. I mean, I can see if someone's had a long life, and everyone, I can hear the conversation. Oh, they have the long life, long through, versus the one that drops of a heart attack at 35, and they're like, I feel cheated.
Yep.
This isn't right. I hate God. Why would a loving God do this for me? Talk through that and how you can counsel people in that situation.
So what you said earlier is absolutely true, that that it's always too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I talk about is that when we love deeply, we grieve deeply. And I say that to let people know that grief isn't the 1-year thing like we see on the
Right.
TV in the movies. In fact, the first year is very surreal. It's just, it's very numbing and surreal, and we don't wake up on 366 days and go, oh. We wake up and go, oh my gosh, now it's becoming very real to me.
Well, in the first year, you have all the firsts,
Yes.
right, that you're dealing with.
Yes.
Also,
That's right.
Yep.
All the first. And so age can absolutely impact it. I've sat with many young moms and dads as the little ones are. I mean, I worked with a woman whose baby was 6 weeks old, and that child will never have a memory of their mother.
Right.
And so we tried to do things like pictures and all that. The baby was 6 weeks. I mean, that, but what we do know is that if you're old enough to love and attach, you're old enough to grieve. So we knew that the 6-week-old would be experiencing separation
Right.
and missing mama and all these things, but very, very, very heart-wrenching for my patient, who is the mom, to say goodbye to her kiddos. And I've had 103-year-olds in the bed where they were ready to die about 18, 19 years ago, right? And I've had people say, if I wake up and look at the ceiling one more time, and that's the question mark in life, right? Like, so why? Why? And then why? And again, the not having answers. But I've had families very, very devastated at the 95-year-old bed, and I don't ever judge that. I just think, wow, you had this person in your life.
Yeah, for that long.
For your whole entire life.
Yeah, how amazing is that?
Right.
Yeah, what a blessing.
A
What a
big
blessing that
blessing, and that they're just realizing that tomorrow grandma won't be there. And what does that mean for them? So to your point, Keith, yes, age can matter. I also know that I have learned long enough now, and I've lived long enough and worked in this field long enough that I say, okay, people get their right to grieve deeply, even if the person was 103 years old, and not for me to judge, not for our society to judge, and that there's a lot of these kind of quips that people say, and anytime it starts with at least, it's typically not a good thing because it diminishes immediately.
Right.
Even though you can, there's ways you can say, I'm really happy for you that you got your grandma for 50 years, but not, well, at least she's this, because what that does to the griever is it diminishes.
Got it.
You know?
So you speak. Do you go to individuals still?
Sometimes if they're at the end of life, I have done some work with them still.
But you're not doing that piece of it anymore.
Not the ongoing counseling.
Okay.
No. So, but I have, if it's a 1 or 2 session kind of, I've met with families who have wanted kind of help at the end. You know, there's also death doulas now, which is a wonderful profession. So I've done that. But now what I'm doing is really taking the amazing wisdom that all my teachers have taught me for 29 years. And that's the families and the patients. And I'm taking these to larger audiences. So I'm basically taking my practice, so to speak, to a stage. And then going into medical schools, PA schools, nursing schools around the country to help talk about these things, talk about end-of-life conversations, talk about meaning in life, talk about living until you die, talking about the things that really aren't taught very well in schools.
Well, and you know, people have a hard enough time talking about getting their will together.
Exactly.
Right? Like people can't even grasp and they don't want to talk about it. What am I going to do with the kids? And I don't want to think about it. And so they just don't do it.
They don't want to think about it.
Think about that. I mean, that's down here, right? Like what you're dealing with is way up here.
Well, what I will say about the advance directive or the will is it's one of the most loving things you can do for the people you love.
One of the, you bet it is.
Truly.
I totally agree.
And I want to acknowledge that those are very hard things. I remember when my husband and I sat down and did our guardianship for the kids. We were both getting on a plane.
Yeah, right. Isn't that always the way it is? Everybody gets on a plane.
In the car, it's still bad, but we're in the plane. And I remember the night before, and it was like they were little, and it was making sure all this stuff, and the attorney's like, yep, I got it. But that was hard enough. And so I want to acknowledge that I don't glorify this. I don't make it. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, this is easy and everybody can do it.
No.
But I will say that I've seen all the scenarios, and the ones where things are, especially what are your wishes, should you not be able to express those?
Yeah,
is very important because it's an action in love, if you will.
Right.
It's not enough to just say it. Yeah. It's fine.
Right.
But if you've got, let's say you have 5 children, what if 2 of them don't agree with the daughter that's making the decision? Now we have family strife.
Right.
So now instead of spending time with you, holding your hand, rubbing your feet, telling you a story, they're in the hall arguing. And that is really unfortunate because I always say to families, we have a very finite time here. Sometimes we have hours, sometimes we have days, sometimes we have weeks. But how do you want to spend this? How do you want to spend this time? And what it comes back to is mom probably could have done a better job of preparing us for this, but nobody wants to think about it.
No.
And
talk about it.
What my terminal patients have said to me, and they've taught me a lot, is that the biggest mistake we do is we always think we have more time. And these are people that are very healthy, yoga, all these beautiful things, vegan, beautiful things, and they get a very unfortunate ALS diagnosis or whatever it may be.
What happens when there's an anchoring family member? And there always is, like the patriarch, the anchoring family member. Everything seems to revolve around their whole life. They go to this person's house for holidays and all that. That person dies. And the family seems to explode.
Fall apart.
After that. And those events never happen. Is there a grieving that goes on with the family members around that loss?
Absolutely.
So it's like, a double whammy. Not only did we lose grandma,
Absolutely.
we lost everything that associated with grandma.
Absolutely. So every primary loss has secondary losses.
Okay.
So the primary loss is grandma died.
Mhm.
The secondary losses are the place we gather, the traditions, the rituals, the maybe grandma was the one that remembered everybody's birthday. Now nobody's birthday gets acknowledged.
Yes.
You know, all these kind of, or even the family lineage that she held that maybe she didn't share with people that has now died with her. So our history, our stories. So yes, absolutely. I see that a lot. And I think it's beautiful when it's happening in the moment in life. Like we always go to grandma's for Easter. We always go to grandma. Grandma always makes this. Grandma always makes that. We're not thinking about grandma not being here.
So this is kind of like, I don't know, on the subject, off the subject. So, we always thought my dad was going to be a year longer than my mom, and my dad's gone, and my mom's got dementia. And I feel like a part of me has processed some of that loss because I have her physically, but I don't have her mentally like I used to have.
Yes.
So I keep telling myself it's not going to be that bad. It's not going to be as hard as my dad was because of that. And I don't know if I'm just telling myself that just to make it easier on myself or not.
This is our Healthy Homes. We have to go out to break. We have one more segment left, right? Oh,
Yep.
good. I got it more. When we come back, I want to know what this was. It Pono. I just want to get it out there because
Okay.
we've teased it enough.
All
I want to know what
right.
it is. That's
All
number
right.
one. Then
All
I want
right.
to know about.
Okay.
I want to know about different recovery rates of people after a death. Some families remember quickly. Some recover slowly. And is there conflict that arises out of that? When we come back, this is Our Healthy Homes. OurHealthyHomes.com. We'll see you right after the break.
Oh.
Make it a
Here we
good
go.
one.
Segment
Make it
4.
good. Sheila, be sharp. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is Our Healthy Homes, OurHealthyHomes.com, ConversationWithKelly.com. Go to that. I encourage you to go to that website, ConversationWithKelly.com. We're here with Kelly Grosklags, and we're in the studio. We're talking about death and dying.
Share this.
Or share this, please.
Yes.
Yeah, do share.
Yes.
That's even better.
That's
Share,
even
share this. It's going to be on
You're
all.
welcome,
It's going to
honey.
be on all the socials. It'll be on Spotify. It'll be everywhere.
You're welcome.
But and once your daughter comes to work and helps
That's
us, it'll be even better.
Yeah, right.
All right. So when we went out, I'm curious about, and we'll get to Pono Bono Rono later.
Yep.
But I'm curious about what happens to the family where you've got a family. The anchoring family member has passed. Some people are going to grieve slowly and for a long time, and others are going to grieve, and then it's like, okay, life goes on, let's go. And there will be a conflict that arises out of that between siblings,
Yep.
where it's like, how can you
think like that? How can you even think about that? She's been gone for a
Mom
minute.
died 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And they're still going to the gravesite and having almost like a reenactment to the funeral. Speak to that.
So grief
Yep.
is our reaction to loss. So our society has it backwards. Our society has grief as the event and loss as the process, but it's actually the loss happens, then we spend our lifetime responding and integrating whatever that means in our life, whatever that loss meant to us. So loss is actually a kind of a one-time experience or a whatever, or a multiple experience, but we have grief, which is, there's no timeline on it. We don't move on from grief. We move with grief. These griefs that are
that.
deep with us, right? I mean, I know we have many griefs. I know we sell a home. I cried and sobbed
Yep.
our first house and whatever. Well, I do not still long for that house. I
Right.
love the home. Okay. But when you have like your parents, your dad, my mom die, what I say is grief pauses at times. It takes a pause. But it can get reactivated from, my mom has been gone 40 something years. I have been at her grave sobbing within the last 10 years. because my kids are graduating from high school and she wasn't that, those kinds of things.
Right.
And so
Right.
is that pathology? No. Our society wants to make grief pathological. Now, if somebody's not getting out of bed and they're not eating and they're not able to function in life, then that's where a grief therapist comes into play to really evaluate that. But I do not get concerned if I see somebody 10 years later having a really strong reaction to missing somebody because it's a momentary experience. What I do see a lot in the society, and especially in families, is the judgment. I love Dad more, therefore I'm grieving harder.
Okay.
I'm grieving.
Wear it like a badge of honor.
Yes, I'm grieving the right way. You're grieving the wrong way.
Yep.
All you care about is the money. And it
When
can
are you going to stop crying?
Yes.
Please.
And crying is one way to express it.
Sure.
Some people are quiet in grief. Some people they physiologically don't cry much. Okay,
Yes.
there's a
Right.
difference.
Yes.
Some
Big
of us
difference.
cry easily.
Right? Cotton
Right?
commercial, there I am.
Right. Exactly. And so you crying or you not
Or
crying,
my sister not crying.
that can mean you still love.
Sure.
You still love. We all grieve in our own unique ways, and some of us are more quiet grievers. Some of us sob in the shower. Some of us scream in the car. Some of us punch pillows. Some of us go for long runs. Some of us drink. Some of us eat. Some of us, we just, there are clearly healthier ways to grieve, right? But what I want to say is I really don't get judgmental about when and where or how and why and all of that people are grieving. I just like to show up and what we can do for people in grief. One of the most beautiful things we can do is show up and meet them where they're at, and just meet them where they're at. It's not a puzzle to figure out. It's not something for us to judge. It's simply being with them. And people say to me all the time, this is so silly. They were 100 years old, or this is so silly. This happened 25 years ago,
Right.
or this is so ridiculous. And that immediately, all that does is put us in our head. And what we want to do is come down to the heart space and really be with the grief. Our grief will soften. Our grief will soften.
Yep.
It does.
It
Time.
fades.
Time.
Time, and it softens, but I have never really seen it when it's a deep connection. I've never seen it completely go away. I mean, even talking about the person 20 years later. Oh, they love. Do you remember when they used to make this cake? Whatever. That's a form of like grief expression. It's not sitting in the corner sobbing. So, to answer your question is yes, I see it all the time. I see people, but the saddest thing for me is the secondary losses when they're judging each other and all these wedges are put, because there's a lot of families, once mom dies, they will never see each other again until the next funeral
Exactly. Or the wedding.
or the wedding.
Yep.
All right, personal question. You've been doing this for more than a week. And have seen this movie played out thousands of times.
Yep.
Do you get hardened to it?
I don't get
Do you get clinical about it?
not in my own life. I know that. So people ask, how can you do this? Well, when I'm in my own life, it's
Kind of
very
like with the
different.
dog. Yep. It's
Stuff can still bring me to my knees, in all honesty. And it's, for us that work in this field, it's when we can relate to it. So it might be a person dying that's our age, or they have a child that's looks like ours,
yeah,
or
right.
whatever.
smells, whatever.
But I
whatever
will
thing.
say that I can show up and listen without falling apart. Yes. I mean, if I was falling apart after every story
Yeah.
that I heard, and I've heard the most traumatic stories, because I also get called to consult on
Right.
world trauma,
Yeah.
whatever, trauma things. And I've heard some things that I have to kind of pause and turn off the phone and go out and do my thing, because it's like vicarious trauma, even though I didn't see it.
Sure.
Right.
Just hearing
Right.
about it.
Yes.
Absolutely. But do you know that I still to this day find this to be, I feel like I personally have the best job in the world.
Really?
Oh, I would never, I know I started out wanting to do another thing, but I would never change what I'm doing.
I could totally relate to that.
Yeah.
I mean, just the joy that my little therapy dog brings
Yes.
to the kids that are,
Oh,
it's
So there's space for all of it, right? Like I
Yep.
tell people in life isn't either or. Like life is both and. So there's space for me to feel really impacted by this story and still really wanting to be there and help them.
So in your practice, then, what do you get derive the most meaning out of? I mean, you did one-on-one, family to family to family, personal, and now training, and what gives you the most meaning?
Well, if I can answer all of it, because it truly it's not separated. It's all intertwined. So when I'm training, I'm representing the voices of the patients that I've worked with.
Okay.
Because they're the experts. So you're the
conduit.
I'm the conduit. I'm truly the conduit. I mean that 100%. I have been taught, and now it's my job to go out and help make life and death better for people. But in all honesty, it's maybe the one person that reaches out and says, "Hey, I read your book."
Mm-hmm.
And this sentence has carried me forever. It doesn't have to be anything grandiose.
Right.
That is, and my team knows that when I get messages like that, I relish in them.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody who says, I literally could not, and I have a Facebook page called Conversations with Kelly, and I just posted something this morning and people comment about this helped me, that helped me. That to me is like the most beautiful thing ever, to know that you helped alleviate someone's suffering.
Do we have time to learn what pono is?
I'll let Sheila.
No.
So Ho'oponopono.
What is it?
Ho'oponopono. So it's H.
Okay.
O apostrophe OPO, I think apostrophe ONO. But if you just Google Hopo, Google will pick it up. It's a Hawaiian mantra, Hawaiian healing prayer. There was a psychiatrist that literally healed many, many people on a psychiatric ward.
Yep.
In
He
Hawaii.
never saw them.
Never saw them.
He took out their files.
Yes.
If I can correct me if I'm wrong. This is the story I heard. He took their files. He didn't want to meet them. And these were mentally ill people in this institution. And so he worked himself with this prayer for each person. I don't know how long. Do you know how long?
I don't know how long, but it's miraculous.
And
I mean,
healed
it's
them.
it's 4
Documented,
mantras.
well documented.
Oh yeah, so look it up. 4 mantras. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you, and I love you.
So if we were, as people, as individuals, adopt such a prayer,
right? We say
in whatever form, there's nothing magic about his exact wording.
Exactly. It's about forgiveness, love, and gratitude. Is really what the basis of it is.
Every night in my hothouse.
Conversationwithkelly.com. Conversationwithkelly.
Conversations. So
conversation with an S. Conversations, and you can get your book there. Or okay, book there, online, everywhere books are sold, right?
No, I'm not that famous.
Yeah, I know. Mine is.
This is Our Healthy Homes. Our Health. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you guys.
What a great
truly.
show. This is Our Healthy Homes. We'll see you next week.
But when he calls me sugar, I love that man with all my might. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon. Sugar after dinner, sugar in every room. He says I'm sweet as I can be. When he calls me that name, it does things to me. I tell him, honey, you can call me